Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Big Picture on the Rider University Network. My name is Zachary Klein, and on today's show, we've got the latest on a new COVID variant, coverage of a Philly sports team that sits 2 wins away from a championship, and a discussion on public safety following the tragedy in Wisconsin last week. Stay tuned, you're watching The Big Picture on the Rider University Network. This past Friday, a new and potentially more dangerous COVID 19 variant was discovered in South Africa. For this and more, here's Anthony Corbi with this week's weekly recap.
A new variant of COVID-19 was detected in South Africa this past week, and as scientists struggle to gather data on this new variant, many virologists are left worried. The variant, nicknamed Omicron, has 30 mutations, much more than the dominant Delta variant that is represented in 99% of current U.S. cases. Positive tests have been recorded in several countries in Africa and Europe, but none to date in the United States. Nonetheless, the stock market suffered its biggest drop of the year on Friday as a result of the new variant's discovery. Also on Friday, the Biden administration released a statement calling for higher fees for oil and gas leasing on federal land. The report doesn't explicitly call for a ban, but will make it harder for oil companies to purchase oil from land owned by the federal government. This announcement was met with praise from some environmental advocates, but others proclaim that it does not go far enough. In local sports, the Philadelphia Union advanced to their first ever Eastern Conference final with a win against Nashville SC on Sunday. After conceding the first goal in the 38th minute, Daniel Gazdag tied the game in stoppage time of the first half. The Union had several great chances in the second half and extra time, but could not break through, sending the match into a penalty shootout where Andre Blake came up big, allowing 0 goals on 4 shots and saving 2. The Union will face a winner of the New England Revolution vs. New York City FC match on Tuesday night. In the Western Conference, the 4th-seeded Portland Timbers will host the 7th-seeded Real Salt Lake for a spot in the MLS Cup final.
And we're joined by Anthony Corbi as always now. Anthony, thanks for being with us.
No problem. It's a great victory Monday for my Philadelphia Union, as we said in the weekly recap.
And how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. How was yours?
It was good. So last Sunday, November 22nd, there was a terrible tragedy that occurred in Waukesha, Wisconsin. A man named Darrell Brooks rammed his car through a Christmas parade, killing 6 people and injuring more than 60 others. Of those 60, there were 18 of them that were children, and 1 child was killed. There are still about 12 children in the hospital in the Milwaukee area today. So this opens up the conversation about event security and safety. Tony, I want to hear your thoughts on how something like this can happen in such a area where there's not that much crime.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's really just a matter of safety for these public events. And we talked a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago about the concert where there were people that were being trampled upon and died as a result of just security being ill prepared to fight something like that, and the concert going on while people were injured. And this is the second, I guess, public safety incident in the last month or so. It just really brings up, like, from a township standpoint, you would think that there would be a little bit more security, and we're 10 years after the Boston Marathon bombing now, so even in smaller towns like the one in Wisconsin, you would think that there would be a little bit more security in places where these public events are happening, and there should definitely be more of a budget for that in government programs, not just parades, but this also kind of dives deeper into the topic of schools and public safety in schools and other government buildings. And you would think that there would just be more of a budget for that, because the whole purpose of the government is to serve and protect, as the old cliche goes. And when things like this happen, it just shows that they're kind of not fully, I guess, working towards that second of those 2 goals, the protection part.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since that Boston Marathon bombing. And I also think that it's hard to believe that events like this is an annual event that goes on in Waukesha, and it's hard to believe that there really didn't seem to be much of even a police presence in the footage that was shown, especially of that senior citizens group that was the most people that died from. I think it was called the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, I think was the name of the group. And they had, I think, 4 of the 5 adults that died were members of that group. And the video is just horrific of this car going at full speed, just ramming into these people. It is just terrible footage. So, how specifically do we have footage that, or have security that prevents vehicles from entering parade routes? Like, I know the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade does such a good job at this, but in smaller parades, can they kind of replicate that, do you think?
Well, I know at the Collingswood Book Festival, which I've been going to for many years now, they always have barricades up, and that takes place in the street. So they always have, these barricades up, preventing cars from getting to these streets, and it's really just blocked off to make sure that people aren't trying to drive on these roads. But there should definitely be some sort of budget for that, for barricading these streets off so that regular cars, even just to crash these parades, even like, someone decides it's funny to I don't know, put like a political sticker on the back of a minivan and drive through a parade. Like, there should be enough security there that something like that wouldn't happen. Even if it's just erecting like a barrier, like a barricade at the front and the end of the parade route and all along the way on the streets. And this obviously happened in a small town, but it still just goes to show, like, the safety budget is obviously really low if they weren't able to afford these barricades, or this driver was able. Like I said, I don't know still too much about the incident itself, but the idea that this was able to happen in the first place shows that security was not strong enough to prevent this car from coming through. So there should definitely be more of an effort to prevent things like this from happening, to kind of prioritize the public safety, even if it means spending a little bit more money on those orange barricades that they put up in Collingswood, in places like Waukesha.
And, this brings up the bigger conversation of all sort of events and even all situations. We've seen mass casualty events in 2021 take place everywhere from schools to grocery stores to concerts and now Christmas parades. So, everything that's happened, people have guns, people have cars, people just are stupid and start surging toward a stage. There has to be a point where there has to be a line drawn where security can't control everything that happens, and security can't be everywhere where they need to be. We need to just have people that are common citizens that are standing up and noticing things that are wrong. And I think that leads into the bigger conversation of schools, where students, a lot of the time, students and teachers are ordinary people. They go to school every single day, and they are now, some of them are going through metal detectors, some of them are going to having to wear clear backpacks. This is a conversation that needs to be had, I think, in every American school, in every American workplace, in every American town and city, about how do we secure our public places so we can avoid having a massacre. And do you agree with those conversations having to be had?
Well, yeah, and I've been saying for years that we should have metal detectors in schools upon entry, even if you have to have teachers scan individual students just to make sure they're not bringing weapons into school. And there are people that will say that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, but at the end of the day, preserving the safety of people, I personally believe is more important. And metal detectors have never been seen to violate any constitutional amendment to begin with. And there should just, bottom line, there should be more security in these government buildings, and just any way that you can prevent weapons, prevent anything that can cause harm or substantial harm from being in a school, from a kid bringing a gun to school or a pocket knife to school. Anything that you can do to prevent that's reasonable, and metal detectors are reasonable. They have them at every sporting event, so why shouldn't we have them in schools? Anything that we can do to make things like education, things like town hall meetings, school board meetings safer, parades. The government should be looking into that and seeing about the feasibility of trying to get metal detectors, trying to get more equipment to deal with safety issues. Because, like I said, the whole idea for government is to serve and protect, and protect that currently is falling a little bit behind.
And one more comment that I will add is that, when I was younger, probably between the ages of 8 and 13, I went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade every single year. And this parade is probably the biggest parade in the entire country. And this was, I'm 19 now, so this was anywhere from 11 to 6 years ago. And there was a presence of security like never before. You have NYPD officers at every block. You had a bag check before we entered the reserved seating area where we were sitting. So yes, and I don't even know what the security presence is like there now, but I do know that it probably has increased with all the events that have happened over the last several years. And there's no reason why things like that can happen in Waukesha and other small towns around the country that host these annual Christmas parades. So Anthony, Corbi, thanks so much for being with me as always.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Big Picture. For Anthony, our producer Jackie Braida, and the rest of our team, I'm Zachary Klein. This is our last show of the semester. We will see you in February. Good night.